Karen Hagerman and family to the Hazel Board of Education. Thank you for your sympathy and kindness. It has been a great comfort to know that you are thinking of us. And so we have a nice thank you note from Karen. We appreciate that.
Comments from the public. If there were anyone wish to make comments, this would be the moment. Okay, don't see any takers. We'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, President Cody. I'd like to begin this evening by personally and on behalf of the Hazlet Public Schools thanking Tobias Tim for 10 years of service on the Board of Education. You've been an outstanding board member. I have enjoyed working with you. And I'm saying that with a straight face. You brought
I'm stepping on his toes over here.
You brought some different perspectives to the board, and I have appreciated them. So I wanted to thank you personally, but on behalf of the Hazlet Public Schools, you've been a great, positive support system to the schools over the years, and I have truly appreciated you.
Thank you. My pleasure. You're here.
And so, having said that, we have a procedure for filling the board vacancy, and the Hazlet Board of Education has announced a vacancy for a board term expiring on December 31st, 2014. Interested applicants should submit a letter of intent to the Hazlet Board of Education no later than noon tomorrow, which is November the 27th. Or you can email Cheryl Horton at Hazlet Public Schools. And just as a reminder, applicants must be a registered voter of the Hazlet School District, be at least 18 years of age, and a citizen of the United States. A board subcommittee will review applications during the week of December 3rd, 2012, with a goal of presenting recommendation for board approval at its December 10th, 2012 meeting. Applicants in need of additional information may contact the Hazlet Board of Education office at 339-8242. And then I'd like to salute the cast and crew of Damn Yankees. And another terrific performance by our students, but Eric Wangerman always puts on a great play and didn't disappoint us again. I want to also thank Pat Hepfer and David Gott, who provided, Pat did the stage direction, and David Gott did the music. So all three of these folks, plus too many people to mention this evening, but just a terrific performance. And so,
It was very
It was
good.
awesome.
and that concludes my report.
Okay, we will move to discussion items. We have three tonight. The first is the out-of-state field trip request for the Eastside Varsity Hockey Team, and I see Mr. Ferguson. You have to tell us about it.
Good evening, and thanks for having me tonight. I am here tonight to request a field trip for our varsity hockey team. They are actually called the East Side Stars, but for the past 4 years, they've traveled to Strongsville, Ohio for actually a 4-day tournament, and I think the dates are on your board packet there, but it would be Friday, January 18th, and they would return on Monday, January 21st, for those 4 days. And there's actually a couple of MHSAA guidelines that we have to follow. One being that it can only be so far round trip that they have to travel, which we are under the miles for that. And then the other big one that you have to take a look at too is you can only play in 3 hockey games per week from Monday to Monday. So Friday, Saturday, and Sunday count as 3, and then that Monday starts a new one, so we are able to play 4 in a row, because then. So our schedule is accordingly. Obviously, I don't have any games scheduled prior before we leave, and we can play 2 more when they return. So those are the 2 big ones that you have to take a look at to make sure that we're not in violation of any MHSAA guidelines. And then also you have to check to see who's attending the tournament, because also if they're coming from other states that are 600 miles away, they also couldn't participate. But it's the same teams every year, and we've done it the last 4 years, and so I checked with our hockey manager, Jill Remus, and she sent this itinerary. This will get more detailed as we get closer to it, but right now that was just kind of a rough estimate of where they play and when they play. So I guess I'm just requesting that the East Side hockey team is able to go to Strongsville, Ohio again for their annual tournament there. So
appreciate you getting out ahead of this early this year, but the other question I have is,
We don't forget, Darren.
I learned quickly.
he and I talked about this today already, so he knew I was going to set him up. But
I did.
I know that the configuration of this team changes all the time.
Yes.
And you give us an update as to
Yep,
where
I
that's at
can.
right now?
We are at 22 total players right now. We have 10 from Hazlet, we have 6 from East Lansing, 4 from Williamston, 1 from Bath, and 1 from Langsberg. And those are co-ops that, you know, I have come every 2 years. We co-op in lacrosse as well, we co-op in gymnastics as well. And we are the host schools of those, so, yeah, it does change periodically throughout. You know, and we always talk about, we take a look at, you know, is there enough, and frankly, there's not enough for us to go on our own at this point in time. And, you know, it's still, I mean, even if you look at Bath and Langsberg only with 1 player each, it's still nice to give those students opportunity. I will tell you, last year when I went to some hockey games, the Bath hockey parents talked to me for a long time, thanking me. And so I thought, you know, I walked out of there going, okay, yeah, we have 1 hockey guy from Bath, but their parents are very thankful that we give them that opportunity. So it's a good thing.
Are you seeing some cooperative agreements now, Darren, with other athletics? You seeing that to be a trend, aren't you?
It is, and, well, yeah, it's certainly, in some of those kind of fringe sports where, you know, some of the participants are getting lower. I know that, there's been like Fowlerville, and who's in the CAAC, they now, you know, never had hockey because they only had 4 or 5, but they went out and found some area schools, and so they're gonna have hockey for the first time. Like Grand Legend Lacrosse, you know, they're gonna, they've had it before where they co-op, but they had enough where they went on their own, but then there's still another team. So you start to see that with those numbers sometimes where you couldn't have it if it wasn't for the co-op, so.
I know we talked about that a little bit with the possibility of wrestling this year,
No
simply
question.
because we had a difficult time.
Yep, it
Contracted
will, and I
coach.
know Bath, in fact, as we're going there next week for a dual match with Bath and wrestling, and they're co-oping with Lansing Catholic at this point in time, so.
Good.
And we thought about it, I mean, we're up to about 19, I just got the roster, as a matter of fact, today for wrestling, we're about 19, 20 wrestlers, so
That's a
we'd
good
like it
number.
higher, but it's good for now, so.
Good, thank you.
Darren, I should know this, I think, but this is a varsity sport.
Correct, yep. Now it's pay, they fund themselves. It's a
Total
club.
pay to play.
Yes. I do know that amount too, that they,
And
It's
going,
still the lacrosse program, right, Darren?
correct,
It is a club sport, but varsity.
correct. Yeah, so, and they, right, I think sometimes that club gets, you know, it gets confusing. They still can participate in
It just
MHSA
means
tournaments,
it's
correct,
self-funded.
exactly. Exactly.
we went to a club sport, or not a club sport, but we recognized it as a school sport. I'm not sure when hockey started, but I do remember the ins and outs of it, where the board, that present board struggled with that because of the expense that was involved with that. And I think the further you get away from the agreement, the initial agreement, the harder that is to understand for some folks. But they do pay their expenses.
Yes, and well, the funny thing is, I
Very expensive.
know some people on the team, so I asked what the fee is this year, because it changes depending on what they want to do and all of that, and it's $2,500, but,
Yes.
which I look and go, holy moly, but if they are hockey players that used to participate in like club
Right.
hockey, that's a deal for them,
Yeah.
so.
It's the ice.
Yeah,
The
the
ice
ice,
time.
it's all the ice time, and, you know, that's another thing that gets a little confusing too, is that ice time is tough to get, you know, I don't like it, but sometimes we have practice at, you know, 8:30 to 9:45, or 8:30 to 10, you know, which isn't the best, but it's that ice time, it's tough to
Do
get.
you have parents going on this?
Yes.
trip, Darren?
Yeah, we will have, I know, and at the bottom there, it said who the chaperones were, but those are just the coaches, but yes, every year, in fact, I know for a fact that some of them that will be attending that just aren't on the list. I mean, it's they use it as a time to certainly bond and get together, and they have a good time and play some hockey, and it's a nice trip for the hockey team, and the parents, you know, they have a good time as well, so.
They're only missing half of one.
Yes, and that's why, it's funny, I just, you know, because Monday is that President's Day, so they're missing, you know, a couple hours only, so. Okay,
Anybody else?
all right,
Thank you, sir.
So
you.
this
Thank
will
you.
be an action item on our agenda
December.
Thanks, Darren.
Thanks, Darren.
All right, our next discussion item is reading in a digital world. Yeah, Mrs. Burley here.
So, good evening. I know all of you, I think you remember me and see me all the time. I'm in the media center at the high school. So, and I always try to remind people that I do have a dual degree. I have one in technology and in library. So, trying to mix those two tonight for you. I sort of feel bad because I know this is Monday right after a long break and you're thinking, oh, Margie, it's gonna go. Long presentation to welcome you back. So I'm gonna try to make it as interesting as possible. And you know, basically what it means is if I have these two areas that I love, I'm just a geek, so I like talking about this stuff. And so I said, what is really cool out there that you guys might like to see that we're talking about? And then I'm going to show you some stuff that we may or may not be doing, and it doesn't mean we need to do it. That's not what I do. Is I say this is cool stuff, and then talk to teachers about it, talk to you about it, and say, is this stuff that we want to do, and how do we want to do it, and what would it look like if we were going to do it? And so some of these things I've already started doing, but then some of them are kind of new and kind of I think they're cool. So that's why. I'm showing you. And so my presentation title, even though it says reading, Karen and I talked about it, would be more along the lines of learning, because I am a tech coach too. So.
I didn't mention her.
Couldn't hear you.
She's a highly qualified English teacher.
Spanish.
And
And
Spanish,
Espanol.
you know.
También.
You are just highly
You are
qualified.
multi-talented.
So my topic is reading and learning in the digital world. If you don't mind, I might just put down the lights just a little bit. I just think visuals a little better when you have two of them. Is that okay? That's easier on your eyes.
Look, that's a popcorn.
So this is not gonna be any by means a comprehensive, because you're gonna know about things that aren't in this. You wanted me to keep it as non-contained, so we're just gonna look at some things that I think are out there that I like.
And Marty, as you do that, will you tell us some of the things that you've already implemented in the
Yes.
school and others that would be?
I'm gonna tell you where
Wish list
where we are
items.
with it, as far as you're gonna know
Okay.
already where we are on some things, but, some things you may not know that we're doing. So what's happening? So basically, what we just talked about, we're looking at exciting trends. That's not, by no means comprehensive. My target goal is always, this is a little group of kids, these happen to be my NHS officers, so I had to put kids in here because, as always, that's the focus. It's how do we improve instruction and impact learning, and the kids being the main focus of everything we do, right? So that's just, that's what I look at. For the high school kids, just an interesting little bit of statistics. I think it's always interesting to look at it, because I think it changes every year. And actually, even though a lot of us are doing so much more with our time, and I know a lot of people can speak to how much their job has increased, I do think it's one of the most exciting times in education. After 25 years in the field, I think we're about to embark on one of the most, without a doubt, the most exciting periods. And a lot of it has to do with technology, and a lot of it has to do with online learning, and a lot of it has to do with what's going to be happening. I think we're going to have an explosion in certain areas. That's just my little thought on it. I think we're going to see revolution within education. And I think it's because our subjects, our kids, 73% are wired. They're wired into social networking sites. That's where they communicate. That's where they live. If you tell them you can't have a phone, well, how many of them actually have a phone on them and have it a smartphone? It's amazing when I take little polls, how many kids actually own a smartphone in our schools, which are really mini computers. And so 63% of students in grades 6 through 12 want online textbooks that allow them to communicate with classmates. 40% generally want online text with collaboration tools. And so you see they're sort of asking for us to think about how can we collaborate online? How can we give them what they're looking for? They're also talking about 1/3 of middle and high school students want their schools to provide tools to electronically communicate with their teachers. It was interesting because they asked kids, if you were able to access Facebook and some of these other sources, why would you want to see them or have access to them, and they said they'd want to use them to communicate with their teachers, to be able to work more efficiently. A lot of their kids are trying to access their assignments all the time through school and home and travel between places, so they find that's the easier way to do that. And another interesting fact was 1 in 10 admissions officers in colleges from the top 500 colleges check out applicants' social networking profiles during their decision-making process, which actually was a surprise to me. And so there's more on there, but I thought those were some interesting. So real time, when we talk about real-time world, I think that's where we're headed with kids, 24/7 access. How do we provide that? I always try to think about that. How can kids have access to assignments? Parents have access to schedules. Kids communicate, and how are they communicating? How do parents communicate? How do we communicate? And all those things that we don't really want to just start opening up immediately. I think we need to look at how do we do it effectively and safely with kids. This was just a really interesting guy. This guy's a principal. And so we're not necessarily thinking about principals when we're talking about social media and communicating, but this guy was pretty impressive when I looked at his qualifications. He's been nominated for a lot of awards. He's been recognized as Principal of the Year for his use of technology and social media. And so I thought, well, it would be better to hear him speak than to hear me talk about it. And I thought you might think it's pretty interesting.
Clearly his haircut had something to do with it.
Oh, I worked earlier. There it is. It just makes it a little slower than mine.
You need to upgrade the infrastructure.
Jeffrey Casson on this.
I noted mine earlier, really did. I checked all of them. All right. It's loading.
Margie, what kind of inquiries are you getting from the kids when they're coming in to talk to you and ask questions about just the media center and technology in general? What are they saying to you? Are
They like wireless. We're all wireless now. We've been wireless for a couple of years. What I would thought would happen was a lot of kids would start carrying their own
iPads
devices.
and all that? Yeah.
Outside of smartphones, they're still really pretty much married to the smartphone or their own phone, their handhelds. And I think part of that is because they still have to carry a backpack full of textbooks. It's just one more thing they'd have to carry, and it's heavy.
They skipped right over laptops, basically, didn't
Yeah, it's little
probably.
tablets now.
Yeah.
What Darren had out there, iPads mini.
There we go. Wow, this will take a
So
long
that
time.
means
24/7 when I need it from anywhere in the world. To me, that's power. It's helping my students see a new world. It gives me goosebumps every time I think about it. My name is Eric Scheninger. I'm the principal of New Milford High School in New Milford, New Jersey. I first started using Twitter in March 2009. You know, at the time when Ashton Kutcher and Shaquille O'Neal were jockeying for how many followers each had. So my perception was useless, meaningless, time waster. It wasn't until I read an article in my local paper about how it could be used as a tool for communications. And the light bulb went off. I looked at this as a free way to get useful real-time information to my stakeholders, being parents, students, and community members. And what I discovered was that there was a vibrant niche of educators, passionate educators, whose sole purpose of using Twitter was to share all the great things that were going on in their schools, in the profession. As I watched more, I started to see my own behavior on Twitter change from just solely communicating information to actively learning and growing as a professional. My advice is, so it's not overwhelming, is to set 1 or 2 particular goals. Start by following a select few vetted educators that will provide you with the knowledge, the tools, the strategies, the ideas to help you improve what you do. Initially, it was hard to adjust to 140 characters, but now I love it. I love brevity. There's a misconception that 140 characters is not a lot, when in fact, you can attach links to websites, images, videos. You really have more space than you realize. I can send tweets out, and literally within minutes, I can have hundreds of responses from people all over the world that are doing the same job as me. I've learned more on Twitter than I have from any professional development program that I've ever gone to. So what I did was I created another Twitter account, New Milford HS. Parents can actually see what kids are doing in real time. Sports scores, student achievements, staff accomplishments, campus weather, emergency information, meeting dates, routine information that we would normally send out in an email, which no one reads. Now we can do it in real time because we live in a real-time world.
What's the hashtag? Protein sin.
That's hard. That's even like more
Right?
more words.
It's more letters. Essentially, DNA is what?
The fear comes in, again, with the stigma of social media, that kids are going to behave inappropriately. They're going to post things that, we don't want as a school being out there. Why not construct pedagogically sound lessons that integrate these tools just using a different format?
Yeah, if you tweet it out, you got to put that hashtag protein sin.
When you look at how the lesson in AP Biology was structured, the students were engaged in the content earlier on, and as a form of closure, they were using Twitter to tweet the process of RNA transcription using 140 characters or less. So the kids had to be creative in terms of how they were going to develop their tweet. The teacher was using a program called Visible Tweets. So when the kids submitted their answers, they could see it in real time, gave every student a voice. As we saw, the students were engaged, on task. They were not using their mobile learning devices, as we call them, to text message, to surf the internet, because the key is to view the phone as an actual tool for learning. And when you do that, the kids rise to the occasion.
Why?
I just thought it was interesting, he's just doing things that we don't necessarily think about seeing with all the kids on their smartphone tweeting about a lesson. And it just kind of makes us think about, how, if we were to do this, how would we manage it? He says it's a management issue, you have to manage it like you manage anything else. And I just thought it was pretty fascinating to see them all using their phones for an educational. Flipped classrooms, I'm sure you've heard about it. Teachers using video to videotape their lectures. I think it's pretty interesting how much this has been talked about recently. It's one of the things they're talking about for instruction right now. They videotape a teacher's lesson. And then when the kids go home, they watch those videotape lectures. So they're not just sitting inactive in a classroom. When they come to class, what they do instead is then they interact or they collaborate or they use the information then from the supposed lecture, the background information, to actively engage in some sort of collaborative.
Do you know if that's, are there teachers that are using this?
Well, they have to talk about that, because
I know of one, I think.
talked to a couple teachers about it, and I've talked to them about my doing that with them, getting them videotape. It says it builds strong relationships and it offers them to share information. There are teachers who have some, videotapes. This one is an example of a teacher who does it, and what his input was. It says it's made for student-centered learning.
I'm Aaron Sams, and I teach science here at Woodland Park High School. My ultimate goal, I guess, as a teacher is to help students become learners who can learn for themselves and by themselves. One of the problems that I was guilty of even prior to flipping my classroom around was The classroom was centered around me. I told them exactly what to learn, how to learn it, what assignments to do to learn it, and when to learn it, and how to prove to me that they learned it. I don't do that anymore. We changed the plates in which content is delivered. Instead of standing in front of a class and delivering, here's how you do this type of problem, here's how this works, I deliver that direct instruction now asynchronously at home through these videos that we make with Camtasia Studio.
Times till whole.
Oh, we didn't do that last time.
The last step, they were already whole numbers. We had 1, 1, and 4. Here we don't have a whole number. So here's a few little tricks when you need to multiply by whole numbers. If one of your numbers ends in 0.5, you're going to multiply by 2.
All right, something 0.5 times it by 2.
Right.
Okay, write this down, guys.
Yes. If something ends in 0.3 or 0.33 or 0.66, you multiply by 3.
And when the kids come to class, they don't show up to learn new stuff. They show up to apply the things that they learn at home and to ask me questions about the things they learned at home. So now they could have my lesson, if you will, what I would normally have stood up and lectured to them in class with some added features. They get that at home. And then what they were expected to do for homework is now what they do in my class. Life is different for me because I no longer am the guy who stands up in the front of the classroom and just yaks at a student for an hour or however long the class is. Now I walk around the class and I help kids. I'm a tutor, I'm a guide, I'm the putter outer of fires, whatever it happens to be in my crazy chemistry class. I walk around and do that. I don't stand up front and teach under the kind of the traditional model. I'm Aaron Sams. I'm a teacher, I'm a dad, I'm a husband, and I love Camtasia Studio.
Is there a liability issue with this?
Yeah, those kids were doing some amazing stuff.
So Margie, I just noticed, and I don't know, if this is on the website of TechSmith, the Lansing company.
They use Camtasia for a lot of their videotaping and we have Camtasia here as well,
Okay, so that's a TechSmith product.
courtesy of TechSmith,
Yeah.
which is a wonderful company. I'm glad to have them. They've always worked with us. There's graduates of Hazlitt who work there, who have graduated from our vision program, and they're very school friendly and local school friendly. They've helped out a lot. So that is one way. They're a screencasting company basically, but they've developed all sorts of different programs as well. Snagit, Camtasia. So, well, I talked to a couple teachers, and that was to answer your question. A couple teachers have said, I've said, you know, Jan Shoemaker, I think she's marvelous to watch her in class. I said, can I videotape you? I've said that to Dee, we need to clone you, Dee. How do we clone you? This is, in effect, I think, a way of cloning a teacher, really, for posterity. Wouldn't it have been nice if we had all of these lectures, her AP lectures, on video? We don't, and it's kind of a lost resource. But I said to Jan Shoemaker, can I videotape you? And then you could have your discussions, or you could carry on a more in-depth discussion in class. And she was sort of reluctant to it, and the other teacher, Kevin Toby, who I also thought would be fabulous to videotape, as a math teacher also, they both had the same reason for being a little bit reluctant, was because they said, I need that interaction during my lecture. So we're working through it a little bit, but Kevin gave me another idea that I'm going to let you listen to. But as far as Flip, I'm looking for a teacher to actually go all the way with it, but Kevin actually gave me another idea, which I've been playing around with. So, but flipped classrooms, they do say that 80% say it improved their job satisfaction, 67% reported improved student test scores, 80% improved student attitude, and 99% said they would do it again.
I know that Patrick has homework tonight for AP English to watch something. Mr. Caravelli has.
Art Caravelli has done as close as to a flipped classroom as I've seen. He's done videos and screencasting. He's learned Camtasia and Cast-O-Matic, with Screencast-O-Matic, and some other sources, and he's put videos on his website for kids to watch. When he has a substitute, the substitute plays a video of Art Caravelli or an audio version of Art Caravelli. So the class continues basically seamlessly from when he left. His lesson is carried on. It's his voice. I know because I've started the tapes for the sub who maybe wasn't able, and it's really cool. It's really cool because it's like he's there in the room. So it's nice.
Seems like too, when you have a situation where if they can watch it the night before the video, and somehow they start to think about something else and they miss part of it, they can always just back up and re-listen to it. Or if it's a math problem or something, they go through it, you really don't understand it, back it up, do it again. And it seems like it would allow them to actually be more prepared for discussion the next day. Even though the teacher would feel like they're not getting the interaction whether they got it or not, maybe that's something they have to figure out how to do the next day to make sure where are people at with their understanding.
Part, a lot of
It seems pretty
classes
exciting.
without the video really kind of flipped because kids go home and do their reading, come in and have a discussion. I mean, in a way, if you do that with science or math, you're gonna do the same thing as if you were to go home and read your.
I like that, and I also like it for visual learners to have something to look at for that review side of it. I think we have a lot of audio and visual learners, and I think that this kind of addresses that. May not be all kids need. Some kids will want to read their notes. Some kids want to listen to their notes, and some kids will want to watch the teacher on video. I think it's one other area where you could add another dimension.
Well, you also have students doing their homework with a facilitator who understands. They're not at home doing homework with mom and dad who may or may not be able to help them with that particular assignment. I can't remember his first name, but Khan, you've seen him on 60 Minutes.
Khan Academy.
Khan Academy, that's all a flipped classroom. That's how he got started with assignments. I think that Art Wajenki told me there are a couple teachers possibly interested in doing something next year along this line. We had Colleen Pringle a year ago went out for surgery and she videotaped herself for the lessons where she was gone. The kids were all surprised. They came to school on Monday morning and they saw her turned on Colleen.
Here she is.
Surprise, you thought I wasn't gonna be here, well, here I am. And she,
Yeah, I think it's not that hard. And I think Lisa Wickman does a lot of that when she's gone because she teaches technology at the elementary. And it's real hard for her to teach a lesson when have kids.
It's easier than subjects.
Right. Well, and the sub can't really teach,
Right.
as I know.
Well, then the learning just continues.
It continues. There isn't a loss.
Continuity, right.
Yeah.
And like this video, Kevin Toby, I mean, I flipped this up here, didn't flip it, but put it up into this within, a couple of seconds. We did it with using a camera. So what I want to say is when I asked him about flip learning, I said, what you're saying is exactly what I think. The kids want online textbooks. I almost think we should skip over online textbooks and go directly to online course building. And I don't think anyone is doing it really the way that I think it should be done. I think E2020 has a system, but when I was talking to Kevin Toby about it, what excited me was that he said we can do it so much better. We have better teachers. We have the knowledge base. We have the ability to do it. And it was really exciting to listen to him talk because he said, I would love to do it. I would love to start. And we don't really need to purchase textbooks. If what we have online is updated daily. If you find the right resources like Khan Academy, and those things that would supplement what you get in a textbook, you wouldn't need to buy textbooks. And you would have access to it 24/7. And so he just said, I thought it was pretty exciting. Oh, sorry. One of our teachers was actually willing to go forward and said, I'll do it right now. I said, okay. Good.
I look at online courses, and we can either be a consumer of online courses or we can be producing online courses on our own. And I think there's a lot of advantages to producing our own online courses. We can make the curriculum match up what we're teaching in the classroom. We can use some of the same materials and activities that we do on a regular basis. Serves a lot of good purposes for credit recovery. If a student fails a class or maybe even wants to test out of a class, they would have the opportunity to participate in a program that was exactly like what we're doing in a regular classroom. We could also potentially draw some students in from other districts if we have a class that maybe another district doesn't offer, or we could do something in the summer where maybe a student could enroll, and we could potentially turn it into a moneymaker for our district instead of spending money on courses that we are getting from the outside.
It seems like too, if student is sick and can't hear the lecture, a lot of times they never catch that. So if they could just simply watch the video, they'd be on task when they get back. And I know that's where
I'd
the
much
state's
rather
going.
watch him teach the lesson than try to pick it up from his notes.
Oh, yeah.
I
You
think
know.
if you were talking about something that was really incorporating that kind of involvement from our teachers, that could be really exciting. I know Don's had experience with his daughter, my son's taken a couple online classes, and it's very disappointed to see the way the material is,
Present.
it's piecemeal shoved together, it's either spoon-fed or garbagey websites, no continuity, or it's missing an instructor's
Right,
you know,
personality.
touch.
That's where I come in. That's where people like me who I study online learning, and that, you know, just because you're a great teacher offline doesn't mean you can just make that transition easily. You know, somebody like Dee Schnarr is absolutely fabulous and remarkable, but she would need, you know, someone to kind of transition her through to the online process and put that stuff online for her. Doesn't necessarily need to learn it all herself, but necessarily it needs help with that transition to that portal. I think that would be great to have access to some of these teachers that we have. Now, I know we talked a lot about learning, so I have to talk about e-reading, my love of e-learning. Is there an app for that? I saw some really cool apps for reading. It's a really cool potential learning application, so. And the iPad thing, you know, we're having a little revolution of iPads in the classroom, and a lot of schools are buying them for all students. I'm interested in seeing that, but I still think kids love hard books. I bought the hard books tonight because, you know, kids still ask for this and still check it out. We still have copies of it because they do. But sometimes, to get a kid to read a book, I have to book talk it a little bit. So you can imagine me talking about what Alice in Wonderland is, or I could talk to them or show them this, which is a little clip of Alice. And this is actually a downloadable iPad that I just saw recently at a conference. And it's just amazing. They're called enhanced ebooks. And you can put this iPad, I think it's either free or very minimal cost for this app for kids. So, yeah, as cool as it was, it made me wonder, you know, is it more distracting or does it make me want to read the book? So some of the discussion at this conference was there's a whole slew of these now coming out, enhanced, interactive, beyond the book. They'll take you beyond the book to talk to, listen to soundtracks, and so they said, you know, think about, does it make you want to read, does it take away from the text? Because the main goal is to get them to read the book. So this one just sort of was borderline between enhancing the reading or kind of distracting from it, and that's an interesting.
But when you think of the age group that we're dealing with, and the fact that over 70% are already technologically, it makes sense that this would be more captivating to them.
Well, and I could see, you know, a 5-year-old playing with this and then wanting to read it when they
Oh,
were
sure.
10 or 11 or 12, because they had done that. But another one that I thought, Shakespeare in Bits. Its current place that they have Romeo and Juliet, Macbeth, A Midsummer Night's Dream. We read all of these, right? In our English courses, we read them all, and I can't tell you how many kids come in and have me try to download the audio on their iPod because it's so difficult. The language is difficult. So we do this text-by-text books in the library. We check them out for kids. Teachers are always trying to teach them how to understand that Shakespeare, because it's worth reading. It's basically a miracle on paper. I always said Shakespeare is kind of, you know, hard to believe someone actually wrote it, but it's worth reading. It's just not easy. So now this app, just to contrast with the other one, is about Shakespeare.
Getting to grips with Shakespeare can be challenging, but here's something that can help. Shakespeare in Bits is a new and effective approach to understanding Shakespeare's plays. The basic idea is simple. Don't just read the play. Watch it and hear it too, all together in one place. Shakespeare in Bits presents the full, modern text in manageable sections beside a fully animated version of the play with complete professional audio.
Gregory, on my word, we'll not carry calls.
No, for then we should be colliers.
I mean, and we being colour, we'll draw.
Aye, while you live, draw your neck out of collar.
The play's text is highlighted in time with the soundtrack, and sections can easily be paused and replayed to help you follow the play at your own pace. Difficult words and phrases can be translated instantly while remaining true to the structure of the original text. Shakespeare in Bits also includes several other great features. For each section of a scene, notes are provided to explain the relevant events, meanings, and language. You can also quickly access a thorough scene synopsis for each scene. Throughout the text, additional margin notes explaining themes, language, and historical and other references are just a mouse movement away. Other innovative features include an easy access scene selection menu. This serves as a useful visual summary of the play and puts every scene within easy reach. Getting familiar with characters is easy too. Just click on the character's name for a quick biography without ever leaving your current screen. Information on characters is also accessible from the main menu. In addition to character details, here you can find a helpful visual map of who's who in the play. Each Shakespeare in Bits title is rounded out with an original and comprehensive analysis feature. With this vital exam preparation resource, you can bring together your understanding of the play's themes, imagery, language, quotes, and more.
So that's kind of an idea of a different type of reading. Some of our kids will never need that, and there's a lot of kids who would really, I think, benefit from this sort of a reading aid.
This is something that's just available online, or?
It's available, and they're called enhanced e-readers, and you can, there's a lot of them. They're for popular fiction as well as classical fiction, and they're producing them now pretty rapidly. That's a newer thing, and they're coming out with them. This I could.
How do you know this is accurate, and what is the way to know that this is worth relying on? That it's the right text, that's the right definitions, that it's a reasonable analysis.
Well,
standards, or?
You mean if we check it with the real text?
Well, it's like how do you, I mean, again, my experience with this one class, Patrick took, there'd be links to websites that had the right title, but the information was weak and, you know, whatever. So how do you, this seems like, how do you know this is good?
Well, we would check it out, but this is an app that was recommended at a conference, and I just saw it. So I haven't done the little background research that we would do before we actually bought it, but the cost of it isn't really that much, as I think it's like $5 for some of these apps to put them on a desktop or put them on a laptop.
Or somebody's out there that help put guidelines or seals of approval or something, so you know.
I mean, you can have, usually we preview most things before we buy them, and Art Caravelli or Rob Ford, any English 9 teacher would know right away if it was accurate or not. And I've taught English 9, and it's pretty cool. I love how you can just click on the words. That's the most difficult part for kids, is the language, and being able to see them both is such a great learning tool. All of that background analysis, all of that is really wonderful. It's actually a nice teaching tool. QR codes, has everybody seen a QR code? You may have gotten a QR code on an airplane ticket, so you don't have to check in.
Oh, yeah, we've seen them, but do we know what they are?
Well, that's cool. If you don't, I'm going to do a little lesson, real basic. QR stands for quick response, and it was actually developed originally for the auto industry. I think you'll be surprised to find out that the Japanese came up with it, and Toyota. Is that a surprise? And they actually are two-dimensional matrices that they can scan. So what I did was, on my phone, I downloaded a QR reader, code reader. I'm sure you've seen them. Maybe they use them in subways. They use them for travel a lot. They use them for marketing, anything, posters, billboards. And you'll see them on products now. We have them on books. The books will actually come with QR codes. And then you can actually go to websites, which I did and actually created one for a book. This is actually the Hobbit trailer for the movie that's coming out. So you can actually go to this site. I could put in a URL, a website address for a book trailer, for a movie trailer, for a book. Because once a book's coming out, Life of Pi is out right now. I saw it. Have you seen it?
It was great.
So if I wanted to put that movie trailer on the back of Life of Pi, again, if I talk about Life of Pi, I can tell them a story. I'm pretty good. I can talk kids into reading books. But the movie version almost always sells it. The trailers usually sell the book. They're professionals. So you can put that address in there and it will create a QR code for you. And you can print them out, or like I said, the books are now coming with them. So if a kid has the app downloaded to their smartphone, or anyone, you just flash it over this and it will automatically produce the trailer for the book. Yeah, and think about,
We could put that on our blackboard.
think about the
QR
implications,
code.
right?
And it would take
There's
people
a lot
right
of
to our
implications
website.
For this, for learning.
QR code reader is free.
Yeah, I got one
It's
on my
free.
phone.
The reader's free, and so is the creator. There's several different ones. The one I had works fabulous. The first one I tried, fabulous. Scanned it, boom, works fine. I think mine's called Neo Reader, and it works great.
There's so many free apps.
It's free. Yeah. 'Cause they're marketing tools, so they want you to know. So anyway, this actually, if I click on it, it's gonna go to the trailer for the movie. It's coming out. It's one of my favorite books of all time. So that is just cool to show kids them enhanced about reading.
So is that a possibility, Christie, that you put it in the blackboard and people can scan it?
That's
Take us
absolutely,
to the website?
absolutely,
That's a great idea.
absolutely. It can take you to any website, Hassel Public Schools.
Well,
Put the
Hassel
QR
Public Schools
code for
website.
your website on the back of your business card,
Oh, sure.
or so that they can scan it. Or someone said recently they got a shower invitation and then this QR code was in it and it led to the registry for the shower. So there- I
It
mean,
could lead to
they're
the map
without
to the
education.
person's home
Think
too,
about it.
and
Wow.
send people like that.
I can give a card for student, NHS students, and it will lead to volunteer opportunities, a list of volunteer opportunities, or website for volunteer opportunities. There's a lot of implications. I've seen a teacher's syllabus as a QR code. You can hand out a little card at the beginning, or you can put it on your website and you can flash it. Student volunteer opportunities, we talked about that. Group presentations on bulletin boards, or, it allows for a lot of information in one small square. And I've already talked to Stephanie Livingston. She wants to have her students make QR code trailers for the library books. So they'll make their own using a site like Animoto or another easy-to-make site, create their own with their own words, explaining why they like the book. So that's the biggest seller I know of, even better than professional trailers. It's like to hear why other kids like the movie stuff.
Is this taught, Margie, like in a technology class that we might have, or?
So I'm having the computer tech now. I teach it
Take
just
online
now
courses?
temporarily, but I'm going to have them create because I want them to know what they are, because I think they could be used in the real world quite often for a lot of different things. I'm going to have them create a scavenger hunt to be used with QR codes for a different subject matter within a group. Each group will create a different scavenger hunt for the other kids to do for a learning tool for, say, science or social studies, or they're going to develop that. So they'll have access to the QR code. Of course, they're going to have to use their phone to scan it. But see, that's where I think
Yeah,
they
we
can
need
use
to
the phone.
like.
They'll want to use the phone. They'll read it. They'll have a limited time period. They're not going to be able to use it.
What about our students that don't have smartphones?
Well, that's why it's a group activity. And at the conference I went to, they said that's the thing, put them in groups, make sure every group has someone with it. And it's amazing to me how many kids have iPhones. In our school, we're lucky. It may not be that way in every school, but in our school, if you do group activities, you can pretty much guarantee you'll have at least 2 or 3 kids with a smartphone in each group. So that allows for collaboration. think it's just fun stuff to talk about, and I hope it wasn't too.
It's great.
Hey, Margie.
Thank you.
What,
Thank you, Margie.
I have a good question. How does, what is the limitation that the district puts on individual students' access to? You were showing Twitter and you talked about Facebook, and I just don't know.
Right now, we don't have access to, we're not doing social media as, students or staff are not using it. And I don't necessarily think, this is not to say that I think that we should just jump right into the fray and because this principal's set it up. I think it's something you have to tread carefully. I think there is such a thing as, there's a lot of cyber bullying going on. I think we need to be careful about where we go with that. I think our digital footprints are important to protect students as well as staff. I think everyone needs to think carefully about what they post or what they do online. So that's one of my big lessons. Don't ever put anything online that you wouldn't want a future employer, these kids, you know,
Or an admissions counselor, apparently.
or an admissions counselor. See, these are good things.
Well, and also online, I've been in the courtroom where comments on Facebook are used as evidence against someone.
Yes, that's it.
So,
Facebook,
yeah,
nothing is
it's got
safe.
real repercussions if you're not very
Once you hit send,
cautious
it's
what
permanent.
you put on.
Well, but
Nothing is
like,
private.
like in the workplace, technology is both good and bad. And if you try to stamp it out, you miss a lot of opportunity. And I think we got the same challenge here, is to embrace it, but do it in a way that's safe and, holds kids responsible to, their use of it. But doesn't try to act like it's not there and it's not going to be a big part of their life.
Because it obviously is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's gonna be huge, it's gonna be even more huge as kids, younger generations grow up, but there isn't really anyone better to teach them how to use it than school staff. That's the way I look at it. I mean, I think we somehow have a responsibility to teach them how to use it productively, effectively, safely.
So you seem very comfortable with it, and I know you've talked to a couple of teachers that you've gone and identified that you think would fit with some of these kinds of things. What do you feel about in general? Do you think in general the teachers would be comfortable using it, or is it still, are we talking about a subset that would be in a position to be teaching things like that?
I think, in general, I think you have a wide range. I think with any new technology, any new instructional strategy of any kind, you're going to have a range of people who feel more comfortable than others, or who like taking risks, or who like to try new things more than others. But I think that support always is important, so how much support we can give. Now we're implementing a new data system. We need not only to have data support for that, we also need instructional support for, okay, now you have the data, how do we improve instruction with that data? That's a monumental task. It's not a little thing. So to train everyone and to support everyone in everything we do is quite challenging. That's why I say I show you these things because I think they're cool, to open up the discussion, to say, well, maybe if one principal wants to do something, we should look at it and say, how do we want to do it and how would we roll it out? But not necessarily we all need to start a Twitter account. I don't know that that's necessarily the way to go. I just say, these things are out there, they're not going to go away.
It would be interesting, though, I apologize. Excuse me. It would be interesting, though, to do a pilot program and run it for a year and have those kids give feedback in terms of, well, one, the data would show how they did. You know what I mean? If the flipped classroom type of thing worked, or even if you just went out there in terms of using smartphones or something that would give us an opportunity to kind of measure outcomes with them and how well they're doing. You're absolutely right. This is where it's going, and I think these kids want this, and you see it more and more and more. So how do you do that? How do you embrace it, like Rob said, but do it in a very manageable way?
Mm-hmm. I think, I agree, Chris. I think you need to try it out with a couple teachers, pilot it, and get their feedback, get the students' feedback, and then work with others that are interested after you experience it and see how it
Feels a
goes.
little like smart boards.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mark, I'm wondering what you're seeing from or hearing from our young interns that are coming in that are recently looking at graduating from Michigan State and doing an internship with us. Are they introducing some of this technology? Are they, any of their methods courses promoting this over there? Do you have any idea? You don't?
I do. I always try to reach out to the interns and tell them whatever you need technology-wise. I will be honest with you and say that there is a range there as well. Sometimes I'm amazed. Now, I have 2 daughters that are out into the college graduates now and out in the work world. Their level of technology use is far less than my son's, who's a sophomore. I mean, he's the one who's going to show us how to do something.
Sophomore in high school.
Yeah, he's the one that's going to show us how to, it's his generation. He grew up with it. They sort of they use it because they have to use it for work, and they know how to use Twitter, and they know how to use Facebook, and they know how to market. And if I said QR code, I could probably show them how to do that. But, you know, for Vinny, it's like second nature. You know, he says to me, "You're so slow." Could you just speed it up a little bit? Because I can't even stand to watch you in it. You know, for him, it's like, you know, it's just everything is so much faster, and so it makes me think about what they're seeing in the classroom. You know, where our use of technology is nowhere near what theirs is going to be in every successive generation. Is going to increase.
And I think they take little bits and pieces, and then they start talking amongst themselves, like taking a photojournalism class. So you have photojournalism, and then you go home and you start playing with your photos on putting together a video or something like that, and the music. And I think I see the kids playing, and the next thing you know, you look at it, and I'm like, that's just, how did you learn to do that? Well, we just opened up the app. We just opened up the app, and we just started playing around with it, and so they're learning to do these things without even really taking specific instruction to.
And they've grown up with this, where you look at some of us, I know I'll speak for myself, it is a challenge to learn it because it's all new. But these kids, if this is the way they're learning
But things like Quizlet, a lot of them have not downloaded the app or have not downloaded the educational use of all of these things is not something they focus on. They focus on YouTube and the entertainment value, and that's understandable, but they don't, and that's where teachers come in, I think. They say, you know, I had a student who downloaded the app for Quizlet on his phone in class the other day, and I said, you know, that's great, that's awesome. Because I hadn't even talked about the app, but he noticed that there was an app from the website, and so then he took out his phone, he downloaded it, and started doing the flashcards for Quizlet and learning, you know, it's just, they already know how to do. So it's interesting. I just think you're right. We need to start with little steps and try things out and move forward that way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Exciting.
Okay, we'll go to our third discussion item, which is the 2012-13 best practices.
Really? Really?
7 hours.
I think I got set up again, okay?
I think you did too.
Yeah, I would not want to
No
go after her
disrespect,
for
Marty.
1 minute.
No. It is Cyber Monday, just so you know.
Yeah.
It's Cyber Monday. We'll order something online.
Steve, just try to beat that in terms of enthusiasm and passion,
Well,
will you?
I say.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Basically, what we're going to talk about just very quickly is the incentive money that the state is offering to districts. Once again, last year we had incentive money of roughly $100 per student based upon best practices criteria that we had to meet in order to do that. Part of the process is the board has to attest to the fact that we are meeting those particular requirements. Last year it was, I believe, 4 out of 5. This year it's 7 out of 8. And so what we want to do is to basically talk about those requirements that we have to meet. Both Sharon and I and Mike have extensively researched these topics to make sure that we're in line with what the State Department of Education is meeting. Unfortunately, some of these things aren't as clear as you'd like them to be with regard to what those requirements are. David can probably attest to this, but what I've been told by MDE is that there's not a lot of, I don't want to say auditing, but behind of what the state's actually going to come back and come to districts. Not to say that we shouldn't meet these requirements, but there's with 700 districts to be able to monitor exactly what every district is doing in each one of these categories is very difficult. But essentially, it's $52 per student. It's about $140-some thousand for us when you look at 2,700 roughly students. So this is a part of the budget that we had in the budget, part of the budget dollars that we had to meet this. Unfortunately, when they came out with this, they gave some requirements, but it's always not, the full picture until you actually get into this. But what we have listed here on the resolution, and I've given some documentation with more specifics as to what those specific requirements are for those. We believe that we can meet 7 of the 8. The only one that we can't meet, and it's not, we believe we can't meet it, but there's a little more difficulty in doing that, and that was the one with regard to the physical education or health curriculum requirement. Basically, you had to meet the state board policy. With physical education, it's difficult for us because you have to have so many hours of PE in order to meet that, and we don't have that requirement, both at elementary, middle school, and high school. We just don't have the number of hours that's required to do that. On the health side, and Sharon, you can jump in at any point here, there has to be a certain part of your health curriculum in this policy, in your health curriculum. And we've met with principals with regard to this. We believe that we can potentially tailor to meet some of this, but it's more difficult to meet this particular one. The one that we had some difficulty, at least in the past, was being the policy holder of the insurance. And Mesa did this summer come out with a new statement, or with regard to I'm trying to think of the term here, but their adaption agreement that you had with them, and they basically added the districts as the policy holder. And we've talked that over with our legal counsel, and they believe that requirement will meet the definition of being the policy holder. A year ago, this was a little more difficult because the participation agreement that Mesa didn't have that actually written into it. And so now their participation agreements have that specific language in there with regard to being the policy holder. So we believe that that we can meet that now. And so I'll just walk through these relatively quickly. The first one, as I mentioned, that's the policy holder of the medical benefits. The second one is competitively bidding out in non-instructional services, and we did that as a part of the transportation agreement a year ago with the Dean Transportation. And even though you're not actually contracting out the services, so long as you're part of that consortium agreement, you meet that requirement. The third one is the school of choice, which we do meet those requirements. We do offer school of choice under Section 105. The other piece, the next one has to do with how we're monitoring pupil growth and how we're doing that with regard to testing and how often we do that, and we believe that we can meet that requirement.
The tricky part here is the online testing component, but we are probably most likely going to participate in a Smart Balance Assessment pilot this spring, and Jeff is in the process of applying for a technology grant, which helps us comply with this one. So if we do those two things, we're in good shape. We actually are monitoring student growth twice a year, but we aren't necessarily having students, well, it depends, but we aren't having to take the assessments online. But we are analyzing.
Crazy that's the requirement.
Well, the reason that's the requirement is the new NEEP assessments are going to be online,
Right.
so.
But they're
the
not providing it to you yet. The MEP isn't online.
No, but they want you to have your infrastructure in place so that in 2014 you'll be ready to do that. So,
Sharon, when it says each subject area, does that mean everything we teach?
no, I think it means a core. So
The
it's
core
talking,
subjects.
it's talking about math, reading, social studies, science, and writing. That's what I believe it means. We are doing with Illuminate Ed and the student growth part of teacher evaluation, we are doing semester exams, all students, and we are feeding that data into Illuminate Ed, and we are printing out reports so that we can assess a teacher's progress with students. So we're complying in terms of doing the twice a year, student growth, all that kind of thing. The little piece is the infrastructure piece, but Jeff believes we're going to meet that because we're in the process through the technology
Well, and this says, or provides MD with a plan and is able to show
Yes.
progress towards the implementation of this
And
requirement.
so we
Yeah.
believe we are in compliance.
Yeah.
But it's there because the state wants you to be ready to do that, even though they're going to give you 3 years to actually implement after 14. So 14, 15, 16, it's my understanding, and 17, you'll have to be ready to have all kids test online. And they are moving those, well, they're not gonna be week tests, but they're moving the new assessments to the spring. So, in 13, 14, which is next year, it's my understanding if the state gets ready in time, that we won't have a fall need test. We will have a spring smart balanced assessment.
So how on earth
So-
are they gonna then, in the budget for 2014, have some kind of accountability
Well,
about?
you know, I don't think you'll necessarily have to have a computer. There probably are other devices that you can have where you can take the assessment. There'll be, you know, as of a few months ago, the iPad was not compatible with Smart Balance assessments. But I believe Apple's gonna get themselves together so
Sure.
they are compatible. But it's a very, pretty comprehensive, complex process.
So when it talks about individual pupil academic growth, that means you're pre-testing and post-testing, or are you using a test from the prior year
No.
to do the pre-test?
Pre-testing and post-testing. For example, if you're doing U.S. history, you're gonna take the pre-test of the semester exam, and you're gonna post-test of the semester exam. You're gonna look at growth. So you may not look at passing, I mean, you know, the goal is that 80% of all kids pass. If you don't pass, we're gonna look individually at individuals to see how much did they know in the fall, and how much now have they learned, and have they made some growth. And we haven't worked out all of that detail, but pretty much teachers who make the 80% of 80% would be considered proficient, not highly proficient, just proficient. You have to have 90% of students meeting that level or to be considered distinguished and highly, well, that's not the right word, highly proficient. But we have a software program, Illuminated, that will do that for us now. And, we, with the help of some Excel spreadsheets, we have actually got teachers go in at the end of the year with their student data, meet with their principal and say, these are what my students did in these classes that I teach. So we'll see.
It's kind of interesting as we're seeing some of the new school aid rewrite that's happening, that they're going to be at least proposing to require that individual student data testing results will be available to parents through the state.
Well, the only testing data they're gonna have is MEP data, ACT data, plan data. That's all they're gonna have, it's floor data. The state doesn't give anything else, so they don't have any test data for kindergarten. And although I heard there was a new kindergarten test they were developing, haven't seen it yet.
Well, they obviously this is all have to kind of work through its process, but the new School Aid Act that they're proposing is in its present form is requiring it from 8 in grades 1 through 11.
And they are working on smart balance assessments for all grades. I know that they're working on an assessment for algebra and assessment for algebra 2, so that you would no longer use your locally developed semester exams. The state would actually have assessments that they would administer, you would administer, and then they would take that data.
The state's gonna give our teachers semester exam.
Yes, that's their plan. I believe their plan. They have a curriculum, the state has a curriculum. They have pretty much told us what the expectations are, what we are supposed to teach. And so they are developing assessments to align to the curriculum that they believe you ought to be teaching, and therefore then you use their assessments to see how well your students did. I don't know how they're going to measure growth. They're just gonna measure proficiency. And so, for example, in algebra, I don't know how they measure growth from the beginning to the end or from year to year. It's not like reading where you could measure growth. So, it's interesting.
And I'm guessing that they're not gonna necessarily tell you that, here's how you do it. They're just gonna say, you need to test at the beginning and test at the end
Well,
and show growth.
That's exactly right.
And we'll give you the test that you will be giving.
And we'll design the test.
And some of your state aid will depend on
How well you do.
Results.
how well you do.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And whether or not the students are attending school. You know?
Interesting.
It may change from that.
Future term.
It's a very interesting time. And they're gonna roll this out in a year and a half. We're talking 2014. That's not very far away, really.
When you say the state's developing exams, are those teachers that are doing it?
There are teachers in the work groups. And Michigan belongs to the Smarter Balanced Assessment Group, which is a group of, I don't know, 10 or 13 states, Midwest kind of states. And there's a work group, there are work groups that are developing assessments right now, and they will be piloting those this spring. And we may very likely be part of a pilot for some, just because they're very different assessments. They're not, they're based on your knowledge, so when you peek out or miss so many questions, they move you to a whole different section of the test. So it's, I'm not sure I totally understand, but it's very complicated. Have you heard a presentation about that? Lori?
No.
And we'll have an opportunity possibly to pilot this spring if we're, it's not just whoever wants to pilot. They want to have a certain group with representation, and certain, gender and ethnicity, and all sorts of groups. So we may or may not be able to pilot. But it would be beneficial to pilot, because then you get at least an opportunity to see how you might do on the assessments before you're given money based on how well you do on the assessment.
Would a teacher be able to see the assessment prior to starting the class?
I don't know that they'll see the assessment. They will know what concepts their students have to know.
Like with the meat.
Like with a meat,
They
you
know
don't
with the
see
meat what you have to
You
teach.
just know you have to teach this content.
But that's the semester exam on which our teachers will be basing 40 or 20% of a student's grade.
Not necessarily.
Oh,
The
so
state
it's
hasn't
not the
said
final.
that. You could still.
Give your own final.
You could still do whatever you want.
This will be done for state aid purposes.
This is for money,
Okay.
not necessarily grades.
But still, but we give common assessments for semester exams that cover the content outlined by the state because we've guaranteed that our courses are covered.
Absolutely.
So we're already doing what they're.
Well, I have been talking to our teachers for years about when they design the common assessment, they should design an authentic assessment which actually assesses the content, not dumb it down, not, because when this whole wave comes in, which is closer now than it ever was, you want to be prepared. You want to feel that absolutely I've been teaching this content, I've been assessing this content, and my students are doing well.
Right.
So we have no worries. And I would say most of our teachers are doing well.
Just a quick question back to the work groups.
Yes.
That are developing these specific tests. Are there work groups for each individual subject?
Well, there are third grade teachers doing group reading assessments. There are Algebra 1 teachers working on Algebra 1 assessments. There are chemistry teachers. That's my
So
understanding.
you have people, at least you hope, that are very aware and knowledgeable of the specific
Oh, yeah.
subject that they're then writing the assessments for.
I think it'll be a challenge in the beginning,
Yeah.
just getting students into the whole notion of these assessments, and they're not, as my understanding, they're not like your custom assessments, they're very different. They're interactive, because of course now the computer allows that to be all interactive. Someday we will be able to show you what it looks like, but it's fascinating.
Okay.
Moving along.
But we feel that we are okay with D.
That was number 4. Number 5 has to do with,
You know what's great is you say it with a smile on your face.
Absolutely.
You gotta love it.
You got
You gotta love it.
You gotta go with it.
number 5, the district supports opportunities for pupils to receive post-secondary credit while attending secondary school. And in the detail, it shows that you have to meet at least one of the following, and we believe we meet multiple of these. You know, you got, you know, the middle college, you know, you got dual enrollment. There's many things that we meet as a part of that.
Counts this?
I don't believe so.
I don't think so.
I don't know what section 1471 of the revised.
If you look on the page 2, it lists out the A through E of what they're talking about,
Could be, possibly, only if they pass the.
under number 5, Rob.
I think they're talking about more of the international baccalaureate programs, that some schools have.
And then number 6, the district offers online instructional programs or blended learning opportunities to eligible students. And
Well, I
we,
think the key word here is all eligible, you don't have to offer to all, so.
and then number 7 is the district provides a link on their homepage to the Michigan School Data Portal, and we do that, which basically allows parents to go out and observe the data for our school district, and that's under the budget. The transparency webpage, there's a link there that you can click on and allow the opportunity for parents to do that. So that's 7 of the 8. The 8, as I mentioned earlier, was the requirement with regard to health or PE. And we actually, like I said, we met with our principals. We believe that we could make some changes and potentially meet the requirement with regard to the health piece, being a little more difficult than probably that we'd like. So we just decided, because you only have to meet 7 of the 8, that would be the one that we threw out, so to speak. So we're meeting the first 7 of the 8. And so the board has to pass a resolution saying that we believe that we meet these criteria, and we essentially will send this into the Department of Education along with our criteria, and then they'll put that money on our state aid payment at some point, depending upon when we send them the data. So these are any other questions with regard to these requirements, these best practices. Unfortunately, you know, the state isn't always real clear as to how to meet this. They don't really give you a guide. They just say this is what you have to do, and we kind of worked on our own to try to look at the requirements and see if we fit into those categories, and we believe that we have with the 7 of the 8. So
Was this looked at the ISD level at all to kind of see if we're doing the same things, or?
we have not. I've not seen that.
I think every
Not only what they do, but their interpretation too, because like I say, there's not really a playbook on exactly what we need to do.
So are you wanting this to be on the next agenda?
Correct, as an action item. And we have until June of 2013 to do this, but obviously the quicker we get it done, the quicker we can start to receive that $140,000 roughly.
Are there already?
There are districts, yeah. I think when I was at the MDE conference, they said there were 50 or 60 districts that had already sent this in. So,
Steve, just to be perfectly clear, you mentioned some comments about the difficulty with auditing this and the ambiguity in it, but just to be clear, your good faith estimation and the good faith estimation of our staff is that we are in compliance.
correct.
Yes, we've read them and read them, talked about
And going back and forth and back and forth.
Check it, recheck it.
You've memorized them.
Okay.
I feel pretty good about, I mean, I feel very good about 7 of you.
Obviously, the ones that deal with curriculum, I have to, rely on what Sharon and our other administrators can help us through this. But we
Okay.
walked through this in our last administrator meeting and walked through each of the components, and we had input from all of our principals as to what we are doing and what we believe those definitions and those requirements that we're meeting, so.
We thought
As best as we can. Obviously, there's no guidebook, so.
we might have been able to tweak health. We would have had to change some curriculum a little bit, do the health piece. And initially, we might have done that had we not gotten the medical insurance piece. But when we got that, then we felt like we were better off to not do that. We can't do the PD. We don't offer 150 units of PD at Elmwood. And to do that, we would probably have to eliminate art, music, all
Oh,
the
you don't
things
wanna
we
do that.
value
Would
in
there
that
be a
liberal
problem with
arts.
that?
Yes.
I don't think there'd be any revolt or uprising, would there?
We made a conscious decision, I think it was 6 or 7 years ago that we did the wellness policy report, and at that time, the state was
I don't know if you
recommending
specifically had.
30 minutes of PD every day.
Do you, okay,
We made a
well, I'll make
conscious
sure that
decision not to do that. We couldn't really do it without extending the day, paying our teachers more money. There's all
I
kinds
know
of.
when you submit it, you have to put that in.
So,
I don't know if you have to identify in the resolution.
and they won't allow you to count, recess or any other, it has to be physical education class. Instruction. It can't just be, a play. Yeah.
Even if you have a certified teacher?
And then we can
It's
count
on the
it.
playground.
All right, let's look at the staff then.
That costs more money.
Everything costs money.
So who knows what they're gonna do next year, so we'll just cross our fingers and hope that,
But we're good for this year.
We're good.
We're good for this year. That's good.
So I answered your question.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, we can move on to board reports. First, President's report, I had a couple of things. One is, as Mike mentioned, we have this, unfortunately, this board vacancy to fill. And had a chance to talk over with most of you, and what I would like to do is reappoint the same committee that reviewed the applications in the summer of Kristen and Lori and myself, and that allows us to have someone from each of our committees, and we kind of still have our notes and our procedure that worked well for us last time, and if that's agreeable with everyone, then that's how we'll move forward, and the three of us will get together at something, probably next week after the applications are in, and go forward from there. And then, secondly, on our next meeting on December 10th, we are having a work session to talk about our facilities and long-term goals and stuff. Now, it's been our practice to have a 5:30 dinner and a 6 o'clock meeting when we do those. I know this time of year is busy for everyone, and I wanted to check with calendars. We don't have to start that early, we don't have to have dinner, we can do it later. Just wanted to get an idea of what would work for the rest of you.
5:30 works for me.
5:30 works for me.
Gotta eat.
I'm good.
We do have to eat. We are not missing that in the busy schedule.
If you show up at 6, you don't get to eat, right?
Nope, you're out here. Is that good for you guys?
That'll be fine.
Okay,
5:30.
okay, 5:30 dinner.
Don said we're good.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay, that's it for me. Policy and Personnel Committee?
Yes, we met earlier this evening and talked a little bit about the ratification of the secretarial labor agreement. And I'm going to let Steve give a little synopsis for that, because I think it'll be helpful for those folks from finance as well, who have probably not been engaged too much, so, Steve?
essentially, the TA was in line with what we had laid out for the teachers, and it'll be similar with the other groups. As you know, the board decided to essentially take a portion of the fund balance to help settle the contracts, and in in a off-schedule type of payment with regard to that. And essentially what we looked at is structuring their amounts similar in fashion and percentage-wise to the teachers. So their amount is less, but it's proportional to what those folks make and stays within line of our overall target, which was $200,000 is where we were looking at for all the contracts. And so when we settled the teachers, we actually strategically looked at what we would believe, not, if we were gonna settle with the teachers, we'd had to have room to be able to settle with the other groups, in line percentage-wise and dollar-wise for each of those groups. And that's essentially what we've done with secretaries and what we will do with all the other groups as they come forward. We actually have meetings scheduled next week with the 2 other groups that are still open at this point. We would have liked to do this so we could get everybody paid before the Christmas holiday, but unfortunately with timing and such, we only have 1 board meeting in December, and so that's probably not going to happen for the other groups. But but the secretaries, we will, if we ratify tonight, we'll be able to pay them before Christmas. The agreement was to do it before the second pay in December. If we can do this, we believe we'll do it before that, which would be the first pay in December. So give them the opportunity to receive that money prior to the holidays. So.
Okay, good. Was there anything else from that meeting tonight, Kristen?
That was it?
Okay. Finance committee?
Have not met.
Okay. Items from board members?
Very briefly, my tenure is coming to a close. It's been I don't know if you can use this word, but I'm going to try anyway. It was enjoyable. Just reflecting back on a decade, which is amazing. I don't think I had hair back then either, but it's truly been enjoyable because we have such an outstanding management administrative team. The care that you put into the district, the ownership that you have is exemplary. From a financial standpoint, there are many financial institutions around the country that would envy the degree of our management skills, our team, the precision, even if it's only 50 basis points. But it's quite remarkable. Our teachers are amazing. Linda and I have been blessed to have 3 children come through the district. One a graduate of college, gainfully employed with her alma mater, which she loves. My 2 sons are being very successful in college just due to the teachings that they received while here. The community that we have is outstanding, and the honorable people that we've had on this board is a wonderful example of when people deal with one another with integrity, with cooperative spirit, even though we are very strong-willed and we have varying opinions, it all works out for the better. And I just go back to the leadership that we've received. I've known Sharon since my children went through school, and what a remarkable individual that we are blessed to have in the district, and it's been just incredible. And Mike Duda, you were absolutely the best hire when you came up, and the passion and the commitment you've shown to this district has shown through at all levels of the district, and it's been enjoyable.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, anybody want to try to follow that up?
Steve, you're up.
I'll strive for 49 basis points.
And I'll be out here at the next meeting.
Okay, all right.
Next year.
All right, we will move on to action items. We have 3 tonight. The first is the approval of the minutes for the November 12th, 2012 regular board meeting. Second is the approval of the 2011-12 district audit. And the third is the approval of the secretarial labor agreement. Anyone care to make a motion regarding these action items?
Move to approve.
Support.
All in favor of approving these action items, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Those action items are pass. Announcements are December 10 regularly scheduled board meeting will be a work session, dinner at 5:30, meeting at 6. It will not be televised. It will be held here in the boardroom of the administration building. I think we could adjourn if someone.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor of adjourned, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we are adjourned.
No nay, huh?
Nick?